Hey guys, tonight we are going to do something a little different. We're not just going to learn about a moment in history. We are going to become a part of it. We're traveling back to Padua in the year 1609 to spend a very important night with a man named Galileo Galilei. Now, a quick heads up. While this journey is designed to be relaxing, you probably wouldn't survive the actual experience. The 17th century lacked certain essentials, like reliable plumbing, antibiotics, and the basic human right to complain about Wi-Fi. The air was thick with the smell of wood smoke and things you'd rather not identify. And the best medicine they had for a headache was probably a leech. So, before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. And in the comments below, let me know where in the world you're listening from and what time it is. It's always a quiet thrill to see where these stories are landing. Now, dim the lights, maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum, and let's ease into tonight's journey together. Asterisk, the first thing you notice is the chill. It's a damp, bone-deep cold that seeps in from the stone floor, creeps through the soles of your worn leather shoes, and makes you pull your woolen robe a little tighter around your shoulders. It's late autumn in northern Italy, and the night has fully settled in. You're in your study, a room that feels less like a scholar's sanctuary and more like the crowded nest of a very intelligent, very busy bird. Your name is Galileo, and you are 45 years old. You're a professor of mathematics at the nearby university, a post that sounds far grander than it pays. The salary is modest, to put it kindly, which explains a lot about the state of this room. Asterisk, your only light comes from a few flickering tallow candles and the soft, hungry glow of a small fire in the hearth. The flames cast long dancing shadows that make the piles of books and papers look like sleeping beasts. Your desk a great slab of dark, scarred wood is an organized disaster zone. It's covered in half-finished letters, astronomical charts dotted with spidery ink calculations, and several curious brass instruments of your own design. You run a hand over the cool, intricate surface of a geometric and military compass, one of the gadgets you build and sell to students and patrons to make ends meet. It's a surprisingly good side hustle, a testament to your skill, not just as a thinker, but as a craftsman. Your hands are not the soft, pampered hands of a court philosopher. They are calloused and capable, stained with ink and grease. Asterisk, the air smells of wood smoke, melting wax, and the dry, sweet scent of old paper. It's the perfume of knowledge, but also the scent of solitude. Outside, the city of Padua has gone quiet. You can hear the faint, distant chime of a church bell marking the hour and the soft sigh of the wind as it whispers through the narrow alleyways. You lean back in your chair, which groans in protest. It's not a comfortable chair. The concept of ergonomics is centuries away, a distant dream for future generations with softer spines. For now, this hard, straight-backed wooden frame is the throne of your intellectual kingdom. You've spent countless hours right here, arguing with Aristotle and Ptolemy on paper, your quill scratching furiously across the page late into the night. Asterisk, the University of Padua, under the protective wing of the Venetian Republic, is a rare beacon of intellectual freedom in a world that often prefers its thinkers to be quiet and agreeable. Here, you are allowed to ask dangerous questions, to poke at the edges of accepted truth, as long as you do it with a certain degree of finesse. And tonight, you have a new question to ask, a very, very big one. Asterisk, your gaze drifts from the clutter of your desk to the window. It's a simple, leaded glass affair, its panes slightly warped and wavy, making the world outside look a little fluid, a little unreal. Through a clear patch in the glass, you can see a sliver of the night sky, a deep, velvety black, pricked with the cold, distant light of stars. And there, rising above the tiled rooftops, is the moon. It's a waxing gibbous tonight, a bright, imperfect circle hanging in the cosmos. For your entire life, you have been taught what that moon is. It is a perfect, polished sphere, made of a divine, ethereal substance called ether. It is flawless, smooth, and utterly unlike the grubby, chaotic, and decidedly imperfect earth you're standing on. Every scholar, every theologian, every person of learning agrees on this. The heavens are perfect. The earth is not. It's a neat and tidy arrangement that has kept the universe in a state of predictable, God-given order for 2,000 years. Asterisk, but you have your doubts. You've always had them. You look around this room, this tiny universe of your own making. Historians will one day wonder exactly how it was arranged. Did you keep your most daring notes hidden in a false-bottomed chest? Were your lens-grinding tools laid out on a separate bench? Or did they share space with your books and loot? The precise geography of this room, your private laboratory of thought, will be lost to time, a small, unanswered question. But the work you do here tonight will echo for centuries. You feel a familiar stirring in your gut, a cocktail of curiosity, impatience, and the thrilling, terrifying suspicion that everyone else might be wrong. The fire pops, sending a fresh wave of warmth across the room. It's time. Asterisk, you let out a slow breath, your exhalation misting a small patch on the cold window pane. Through the glass, the moon still looks exactly as the ancients described it. It's a lamp, not a world. A perfect orb of light hung in the sky for the benefit of Earth, the center of everything. You can almost feel the weight of that established cosmos. A magnificent, intricate, and utterly reassuring piece of celestial clockwork. The system is beautiful, you have to admit. It's a universe of perfect spheres, nested one inside the other, like a set of divine Russian dolls. Mercury, Venus, the Sun, Mars, Jupiter, Saturn, all of them fixed to their own transparent, crystalline sphere, each turning with a silent, mathematical grace around you, around the Earth. And beyond them all is the final sphere, the firmament of fixed stars, a glittering wall that contains the whole of creation. It's tidy, it's elegant, and, most importantly, it's what everyone who matters believes to be the undeniable truth. Asterisk, the core of this belief, the part you keep bumping up against in your mind, is the stark division between here and there. Down here, on Earth, everything is a mess. Things are born, they grow, they get sick, they decay. The terrestrial realm is made of 4 grubby, unreliable elements: earth, water, air, and fire. It's the universe's messy basement, a place of change and corruption. But up there, beyond the orbit of the moon, is a different reality altogether. The heavens, you've been taught, are composed of a 5th element. The quintessence, ether, a substance that is perfect, eternal, and unchanging. The sun isn't a hot ball of fire. It's a perfect globe of ether that just happens to produce light and heat. The planets aren't giant, spinning rocks. They are flawless, weightless spheres gliding effortlessly through the cosmos. And the moon, that bright companion hanging in your window, is the closest of them all, the gateway to that perfect, incorruptible world. It is supposed to be smoother than any polished marble, more flawless than a drop of mercury. Asterisk, a lesser known, and rather lovely, part of this theory is the idea of celestial harmony. It's whispered in the texts of Pythagoras and Plato. The Musica Universalis, the music of the spheres. The theory goes that as these giant, crystalline spheres rotate, they rub against one another, producing a sound, a divine and perfect hum. Each sphere Mars, Jupiter, the sun produces its own note, and together they create a constant, breathtakingly beautiful chord that fills the universe. Of course, you can't hear it. We humans, living down here in the noisy, chaotic sublunar world, are too imperfect, too inundated with the sounds of our own grubby existence to perceive such divine music. It's a beautiful thought, a universe that sings to itself in perfect harmony, but it also feels a little too convenient. Another perfect thing you're just meant to take on faith. Asterisk, you push yourself away from the window, the legs of your chair scraping softly on the stone floor. You walk over to a tall, dark bookcase that looms against the far wall. Your fingers, dusty with the residue of your work, trace the spines of the heavy, leather-bound volumes. Aristotle, Ptolemy, Aquinas, the titans of thought, the architects of this perfect universe. You pull out a heavy copy of Ptolemy's Almagest, the mathematical Bible of astronomy for the last 1,400 years. The book feels heavy in your hands, not just from its physical weight, but from the immense authority it carries. You open it to a page filled with complex diagrams of circles and fantastically complicated system of celestial loops required to make the planets appear to move the way they do from Earth. It's a work of genius, a mathematical masterpiece, but it's also a desperate attempt to make reality fit the theory. To keep the Earth at the center, Ptolemy had to make the planets perform absurd, looping pirouettes in the sky. Asterisk, historians will one day debate how deeply you, and men like you, truly believed this ancient model. Was it an article of unwavering faith? Or was it more like a functional but flawed tool that everyone knew had its problems? The truth is probably somewhere in the middle. The system works, more or less, for predicting where the planets will be. It satisfies the soul with its elegance and its clear, hierarchical structure. Your gaze settles on a cluttered workbench in the corner, a place where stray thoughts and half-formed ideas take physical shape. It's here, amidst the wood shavings, brass fittings, and stray pieces of glass, that your latest obsession resides. The idea didn't begin with the stars, but with something far more terrestrial: gossip. Specifically, the juicy international gossip that flows through the port of Venice, a bustling hub of commerce and information just a short boat ride from Padua. It was there, just over a year ago, that you first heard the whispers, rumors of a curious new invention from the Netherlands, a spyglass. The stories were fragmented, almost mythical. They spoke of a Dutch spectacle maker named Hans Lippershey, who had stumbled upon a remarkable trick by holding two specific types of glass lenses in a tube, one behind the other. He could make distant objects appear startlingly close. Asterisk, the initial reports were all military and commercial. A merchant in Venice could use it to identify a ship arriving on the horizon hours before his competitors, gaining a crucial market advantage. A general could use it to survey the enemy's fortifications from a safe distance, counting their cannons and assessing their weaknesses. It was a tool for seeing far, a looker, as some called it. It was, in essence, a toy for powerful men, a novelty that gave its owner a small, earthly advantage. You've even heard a rather amusing, though likely untrue, story that the invention was discovered by Lippershey's children, who were playing with his discarded lenses and noticed the magnifying effect by chance. A classic tale of accidental genius, probably too good to be true, but a charming thought nonetheless. Asterisk, but you, being you, heard these stories, and your mind immediately went elsewhere, not down to the sea, but up to the sky. If this device could bring a distant ship closer, what could it do to the moon? What could it reveal about the planets, which to the naked eye were just wandering points of light? The thought took root and refused to let go. You wrote letters, you pestered well-traveled friends, you pieced together the scattered accounts. You didn't need to see one of the Dutch devices. You just needed to understand the principle. And the principle, you deduced, had to be based on the science you already knew intimately: optics. The way light bends refracts when it passes through a lens. Asterisk, so you began to experiment. This is a part of your story that often gets glossed over. You weren't just a theorist. You were a tinkerer, a maker. You didn't just order a spyglass. You decided to build a better one, a much better one. You knew the basics of lenses from your work with spectacles, which were becoming increasingly common throughout Italy. Convex and concave. One gathers light, the other spreads it. The secret, you figured, must be in the precise combination of their shapes and the distance between them. You acquired your own lenses, some purchased, some ground by your own hand, and began the slow, frustrating process of trial and error. You'd hold one lens up to your eye, and another at arm's length, sliding it back and forth, trying to find that magical point of focus. For every moment of clarity, there were 100 moments of frustrating, distorted blurs. The image would appear upside down, warped at the edges, or tinged with strange colors. It was like trying to tune a fickle and invisible instrument. But you were persistent. One of your greatest talents was your patience for tedious, incremental improvement. Historians will later marvel at the speed with which you went from hearing about the spyglass to building a vastly superior version, while the original Dutch models magnified things by about 3 times. Your first working prototype managed 8. You were not just copying an idea. You were mastering and amplifying it. You presented that first successful telescope to the Venetian Senate. You took them to the top of the St. Mark's Campanile, the tallest bell tower in Venice, and let them peer through it. They were astounded. They saw ships so far out at sea, they were invisible to the naked eye. They saw the details of the facade on a church in Murano, miles away. They were, to put it mildly, deeply impressed. They saw a powerful military and commercial tool, a device that would secure Venice's dominance on the seas. They immediately doubled your salary at the university and gave you a lifetime appointment. It was a brilliant move, both scientifically and politically. You gave them a toy for seeing far, and in return, they gave you the financial security and academic freedom to turn that toy toward the heavens. It was one of the shrewdest bargains in the history of science. But you know that the 8-power instrument you gave the Senate was just the beginning. It was a proof of concept. The real work, the work that truly excites you, is happening right here, in this chilly, cluttered room. In the corner sits the result of months of further refinement. A new telescope, 20 times more powerful than the naked eye. This is the instrument you built not for doges and generals, but for yourself. It is your key to the sky, and tonight, the sky is clear, and the moon is waiting. The question still lingers in the scholarly world. Did you invent the telescope? The answer is no. But did you take a carnival novelty and transform it into a tool of scientific revolution? Absolutely. You saw the potential that its own inventors had missed. They saw a way to make a quick gilder. You saw a way to redraw the map of the entire universe. Your focus now shifts from the abstract to the intensely physical. Building the instrument that will challenge a 2,000-year-old worldview is not a clean or quiet affair. It's a messy, hands-on, and deeply personal process. At the heart of it all is the glass. You walk over to a small, sturdy table littered with the tools of the lens grinder's trade. Here, the air smells different, not of paper and wax, but of something grittier, a mineral scent of dust and damp stone. On the table are several thick, greenish discs of raw glass, imported from the master glassmakers of Murano. To a casual observer, they look crude, full of tiny bubbles and imperfections. But to you, they are blocks of raw potential, waiting to be shaped by patience and friction. You pick up a piece you've been working on. A convex lens for the objective, the part that will face the moon. It's cool and heavy in your palm. The process of turning a raw glass blank into a precisely curved lens is an art of slow, deliberate abrasion. You've spent countless hours right here, hunched over this bench, locked in a repetitive, almost meditative dance with the material. You've learned this craft not in a university lecture hall, but through feel, sound, and sight. It is a craftsman's knowledge, passed down through guilds, not textbooks. You are, in this moment, as much an artisan as you are a mathematician. The first step is the roughest. You fix the glass disc to a handle with pitch, a sticky, black tar. Then you begin to grind it against a curved metal tool, a concave dish that has the inverse of the curve you want to create. You sprinkle a coarse abrasive sand, or emery mixed with water, onto the tool, and then you begin to grind. You push the glass back and forth, around and around, in a specific, looping pattern. The sound is a harsh, grating screech, a gritty protest of glass against metal. It's a sound that sets your teeth on edge, but you've grown accustomed to it. You have to apply steady, even pressure, constantly rotating the glass in your hand to ensure the curve is uniform. It's physically demanding work. Your shoulders ache, your wrists burn, and your fingers are raw and sore by the end of a session. After hours of this rough grinding. Once the basic shape is formed, you move on to finer and finer abrasive. The sand is replaced with powdered stone, then rotten stone, and finally, a fine, silty powder called jeweler's rouge or putty. With each new abrasive, the sound changes. The harsh screech softens to a rhythmic, gritty whisper, then to a soft, satisfying hiss. You are no longer removing large chunks of glass. You are polishing away microscopic imperfections. You have to listen to the sound, to feel the drag of the glass against the tool. Too much pressure, and you'll ruin the curve. Too little, and you won't make any progress. It's a delicate balance, a conversation between you and the glass dot. One of the great historical debates surrounding your work is just how you managed to achieve such remarkable quality. Lens grinding was a notoriously finicky art. The glass itself was often flawed with internal bubbles and streaks, called stry, which would distort the light passing through. Furthermore, achieving a perfect spherical curve was incredibly difficult. The slightest deviation would result in what later scientists would call spherical aberration, causing the image to be blurry and out of focus around the edges. Yet the discoveries you are about to make suggest your lenses were exceptionally good for their time. Did you invent a new grinding technique? Did you have a secret method for polishing? Perhaps you simply had an intuitive genius for the work. An artist's touch that allowed you to feel when the curve was just right. The quiet, tactile secrets of your workshop are another detail lost to time. Finally, after the last stage of polishing with a soft cloth and putty, you hold the lens up to a candle flame. You look not at the flame itself, but at its reflection on the surface of the glass. You tilt the lens back and forth, watching the tiny point of light glide across its curve. This is the final, crucial test. If the curve is perfect, the reflection will move smoothly, without any distortion or flicker. If there's a flaw, a tiny bump or dip, the reflection will jump or waver. With the lenses now ground, polished, and judged worthy, the next step is to give them a body. A telescope is more than just two pieces of glass. It's the carefully calibrated distance between them. It's the tube that holds them in alignment, protecting them from stray light and the clumsy fingers of the outside world. You move from the grinding bench to a larger table, this one covered with strips of wood, pots of glue, and rolls of heavy paper and leather. This is where you practice the art of tube making, a skill that feels a world away from the gritty precision of optics. It's closer to carpentry, or perhaps even bookbinding. Your telescope tubes aren't the sleek brass instruments you might picture from a later era. They are humbler, more organic creations. You begin with thin slats of wood, probably cypress or fir, which you've carefully shaped into long, tapering staves, like the pieces of a very narrow barrel. You lay them side by side, their edges beveled to fit together snugly into a multi-sided tube. The glue you use is a foul-smelling but effective concoction made from rendered animal hides. You heat it over a small brazier, and the pungent, thick aroma fills your little workshop. It's not a pleasant smell, but it's the smell of things sticking together, of construction and creation. You carefully paint the hot, sticky glue onto the edges of the staves and press them together, holding them in place with tightly wound cord. Once the wooden core is assembled and the glue has set, The real work of strengthening and beautifying the tube begins. You wrap it in layers of heavy paper or parchment, a process called cartapesta, much like modern papier, MCH. Each layer is saturated with more of that smelly, powerful glue, and you smooth it down with your hands, working out any air bubbles or wrinkles. This layering gives the tube its rigidity and strength without adding too much weight. A long telescope is an unwieldy thing, and keeping it light is crucial for maneuverability. You are building an instrument that needs to be aimed with precision, not a battering ram. Finally, for the outer layer, you use a fine, dark leather, often dyed a deep crimson or green and stamped with gold leaf patterns. This isn't just for show, though you are not immune to the appeal of a handsome instrument. You live on the patronage of wealthy men, and a beautiful object is always more persuasive than a plain one. But the leather also serves a practical purpose. It provides a final layer of protection against the damp Italian night and gives you a secure, comfortable grip. Historians still possess a few of your original telescopes, and they are beautiful objects. One of the quirky, lesser-known details is that you often used vellum, a fine animal skin parchment, for the main tube of some of your most powerful instruments. There is a strange poetry in this, using the skin of an animal, the same material used for sacred texts and scholarly manuscripts, to create a tube that would reveal a new celestial scripture. The most critical part of the assembly is fitting the lenses. At either end of the long tube, you've constructed housings for them. The objective lens, the large convex one you just finished polishing, is fitted at the front end, the end that will point toward the sky. The eyepiece, a smaller, concave lens, goes at the other. Getting the distance between them exactly right is everything. This distance determines the focal length, and thus the magnification of the instrument. You have to slide the eyepiece housing back and forth within the main tube to find the precise point where the image snaps into focus. You create a draw tube system, a smaller tube sliding within the larger one, to allow for these fine adjustments. You pick up the long leather-bound tube. It's nearly 4 feet long but surprisingly light. It feels powerful in your hands, a strange new kind of scientific wand. You slide the eyepiece in and hold it up, pointing it at a tapestry on the far wall of your study. You close one eye and peer through the small opening. At first, all you see is a swirl of color, a confusing blur. You carefully slide the draw tube in and out, your movements small and precise. Suddenly, the blur resolves itself. The threads of the tapestry leap into focus, each one sharp and distinct. You can see the faded depiction of a hunting scene with a clarity that is impossible from across the room. It works. The simple joy of it, the quiet thrill of seeing something so distant in such intimate detail, never gets old. You've built several of these instruments now, each one a slight improvement on the last. This one, your 20th powered telescope, is your masterpiece. It's the culmination of months of grinding, gluing, and refining. You feel a paternal sense of pride as you look at it. It is not just an object. It is an extension of your own eye, an augmentation of your own senses. It's a machine for seeing, and tonight, you will turn it on the most famous, most revered, and most misunderstood object in the night sky. The question of who, exactly, assembled these for you is a minor academic puzzle. Did you have workshop assistants, unsung craftsmen who did the gluing and sanding while you focused on the optics? Or were you a solitary inventor, jealously guarding your techniques? Given your protective nature, the latter seems more likely. You are about to betray 2 millennia of cosmic consensus. It's probably not the kind of project you delegate. The last of the afternoon's golden light has now completely faded from the window. The sky outside has deepened from a soft, bruised twilight into the hard, inky black of true night. The city of Padua, which only a few hours ago was a bustling hive of students, merchants, and church bells, has tucked itself in. The silence that settles over the rooftops is thick and heavy, punctuated only by the occasional bark of a distant dog or the low rumble of a passing cart on the cobblestones. Inside your study, the fire in the hearth has burned down to a bed of glowing embers, casting a warm, sleepy orange light across the room. The candles have dripped pools of wax onto their iron holders, their flames sputtering and dancing, growing shorter with each passing minute. Asterisk, this is the waiting time. The slow, quiet interlude between the day's work and the night's discovery. All the grinding, polishing, and gluing is done. The instrument is assembled, leaning against your desk like a patient, silent sentry. There is nothing left to do now but wait for your target to rise high enough in the sky to clear the neighboring rooftops and the ever-present haze of chimney smoke that clings to the city. You find yourself pacing the length of your small study, a restless energy buzzing beneath your skin. It's a feeling you know well, the nervous, eager anticipation that comes just before an important experiment. It's a mix of hope and anxiety. What if you see nothing? What if the view is no different from what the naked eye can perceive, just a little bigger? What if the perfect crystalline sphere of the ancients is exactly what you find? The thought is a dull, disappointing thud in your chest. Asterisk, you walk to the window and press your forehead against the cool glass. The moon is higher now, a brilliant, cold disk climbing the eastern sky. To your unaided eye, it is the same moon you've seen 1,000 times before. You can make out the familiar, vague, gray smudges on its surface, the shapes that people have been turning into faces and fables for millennia. The man in the moon, the rabbit, or, as one of your contemporaries, Johannes Kepler, has whimsically suggested, perhaps these are continents and oceans, and the moon is another Earth. You smile at the thought. Kepler is a brilliant man, a fellow traveler in the world of new astronomy. But his imagination does have a tendency to run wild. You prefer to wait for the evidence. Asterisk, to pass the time, and perhaps to calm your nerves. You do what you always do. You check your work. You pick up the new telescope, its leather-clad tube, cool and smooth beneath your fingers. You run your hand along its length, feeling for any loose fittings or weaknesses. You uncap the objective lens and hold it up to the candlelight, checking for any last-minute smudges or specks of dust. You gently polish the glass with a soft chamois cloth, a gesture that is as much a ritual of reassurance as it is a practical necessity. You then check the eyepiece, making sure the draw tube slides smoothly in and out. Everything must be perfect. One historian would later quip that you probably spent more time cleaning your lenses than most people in the 17th century spent cleaning themselves. It's a crude joke, but it holds a grain of truth. You are meticulous, almost obsessive, when it comes to your instruments. They are your gateway to the heavens, and you treat them with the reverence a priest affords his sacred relics. Asterisk, the waiting stretches on. You try to read, picking up a volume of poetry by Petrarch, but the elegant verses can't hold your attention. Your mind keeps drifting back to the sky. This feeling, this quiet, pre-discovery tension, is a deeply human part of the scientific process that is often overlooked. History remembers the eureka moment, the sudden flash of insight. It forgets the long, quiet, and often boring hours that precede it. The hours spent waiting for the sky to clear, for the chemicals to react, for the specimen to grow. It is in these quiet moments that the true work is done, the mind preparing itself for what it is about to see. Historians can only speculate about your exact mood on this particular night in November 1609. Were you confident? Terrified? Did you have a clear sense that you were on the verge of something monumental? Or was this just another night of tinkering, another small step in a long series of investigations? We can never know for sure. You unlatch the heavy wooden door, which swings inward with a low groan of protest from its iron hinges. A wave of cold night air rushes into the study, smelling of damp earth, decaying leaves, and the faint, clean scent of frost. It's a welcome shock to the senses after the stuffy, smoky air of the room, and it makes the embers in the hearth hiss and glow a little brighter. You step out, pulling the door closed behind you, and find yourself in the small, enclosed space of your garden. It's not much of a garden, really more of a stone-paved courtyard, with a few hardy olive trees, and some rosemary, bushes that have gone woody and sparse in the autumn chill. A high stone wall surrounds the space, giving you a precious pocket of privacy from your neighbors and blocking out the stray light from the surrounding city. It is, for your purposes, a perfect, private observatory. Asterisk. The transition from the relative warmth of your study is immediate and sharp. The cold bites at your exposed hands and face. You can feel the goosebumps rise on your arms beneath your woolen robe. You pull the hood up over your head, the rough fabric scratching lightly against your ears. Above you, the sky has opened up. Free from the narrow frame of the window, the celestial vault seems immense, a vast, silent ocean of blackness. The stars are scattered across it like spilled salt, sharp and brilliant in the crisp, clean air. And there, hanging in the middle of it all, is the moon. It seems brighter out here, more present. It's cold. Silvery light washing over the courtyard and casting soft, ill-defined shadows. The flagstones beneath your feet glow with a pale, ghostly luminescence. Asterisk. You carry the telescope carefully, one hand supporting its weight in the middle, the other gripping the eyepiece end. It's a cumbersome instrument, nearly as tall as you are, and not designed for casual, one-handed use. You need to steady it. You've already prepared for this, of course? Near the center of the courtyard is a simple but sturdy wooden stand you've built, a sort of crutch for your new eye. It's little more than a wooden pillar with a swiveling yoke at the top where the telescope can rest, allowing it to be tilted up and down and swung from side to side. It's a crude mount by later standards, wobbly and prone to vibration, but it's the best you can manage. And it's a vast improvement over trying to hold the long tube steady in your freezing hands. Asterisk. You gently place the telescope into the yoke, seating it snugly. You can feel the slight tremble of the wood as it settles. You take a moment to look at the scene, the long, dark tube pointing expectantly upwards, a strange new spire in your little garden, aimed at the heart of the ancient sky. It looks almost like a cannon, you think, a whimsical and slightly unsettling thought, but you are not preparing for a war of gunpowder and iron. You are preparing for a war of ideas, and this is your chosen weapon. Asterisk. A quirky and very human detail that is often debated by historians is what you did for comfort during these long, cold nights of observation. Did you bring a chair out with you? A blanket? A small flask of wine or grappa to ward off the chill? The historical record is silent on these domestic details, but it's hard to imagine you simply stood shivering in the dark for hours on end. Perhaps you had a small wooden stool, or you braced yourself against the cold stone wall. For tonight, let's imagine you are too consumed with anticipation to care much for comfort. You are a man on a mission. And a little shivering is a small price to pay for a glimpse of a new cosmos. Asterisk. You stand beside the instrument and take a moment to let your eyes fully adjust to the darkness. The bright moon has bleached the sky around it, but as you wait, more and more faint stars begin to emerge from the background, popping into existence one by one. The air is so still you can hear the soft rustle of your own clothing with every small movement. You place a hand on the telescope tube. The leather is cold and slightly damp with dew. You take a deep breath, the frosty air stinging your lungs, and you can see your own breath plume in the moonlight, a temporary, ghostly cloud. The entire world seems to be holding its breath with you. The universe has been arranged in a certain way for thousands of years, and you are about to stick your eye to the end of a wooden tube and potentially, just potentially, knock it all down. The thought is both exhilarating and profoundly lonely. You are the only person on the entire planet doing this tonight. You are the only one who is about to see what you are about to see. With a final steadying touch, you lean forward, your body C-curved in the darkness, and prepare to look. Asterisk, you bend down, a slight stiffness in your back, protesting the cold, and bring your eye to the small glass lens of the eyepiece. The metal ring around it is shockingly cold against your skin, a tiny circle of frost. You close your other eye, trying to block out the ambient moonlight that still floods your peripheral vision. You take aim at the brilliant white disk in the sky, a target so large and bright it should be easy to find. But the first thing you see is nothing, just a chaotic, swimming blur of light. It's a bright, milky soup that dances and shimmers, refusing to resolve into a coherent image. It's like trying to look at the world through a smudged and wavering piece of ice. Asterisk, a flicker of frustration, sharp and hot, cuts through the cold. You pull back for a moment, blinking. Is it a smudge on the lens? Is the alignment off? You know this is the hardest part. The field of view in your telescope is incredibly narrow. Finding an object, even one as big as the moon, requires a delicate touch. Moving the tube just a fraction of an inch can send your view careening across a vast empty patch of sky. Your mount, that simple wooden stand, is not helping. The slightest vibration from your hand, a gust of wind, even the tremor from your own breathing, is magnified 20 times over, making the image jump and dance uncontrollably. It's like trying to thread a needle during an earthquake. Asterisk, you take a calming breath and try again. You lean back into the eyepiece, gripping the tube with a firm but gentle hand, trying to anchor it against the stand. You move it slowly, deliberately, scanning back and forth across the bright patch of sky where the moon ought to be. The blurry light swims back into view. This time, you hold it there. Now for the focus. With your other hand, you reach for the draw tube, the part of the eyepiece that slides in and out. You begin to adjust it, your movements infinitesimally small. You push it in a millimeter. The blur gets worse, a soft, unfocused smear. You pull it back out, past the starting point. The blur shifts, the edges seeming to sharpen for a tantalizing split second before dissolving back into chaos. Asterisk, this is the delicate, frustrating dance of 17th century astronomy. There are no fine-tuning knobs, no computerized mounts. It's all you, your hands, and the imperfect mechanics of wood and glass. You feel a renewed respect for the astronomers of the past, who tracked the planets with nothing but naked eyes and brass sighting instruments. You at least have the promise of magnification, if you can just wrestle the image into submission. One lesser-known challenge you face is the quality of the lens itself. Even your best creations suffer from what is now called chromatic aberration, because a simple lens bends different colors of light at slightly different angles. Bright objects are often surrounded by a faint, blurry halo of color, a reddish or bluish fringe that can obscure fine details. You don't have the scientific language for it yet, but you can see the effect of frustrating, colorful ghost that haunts the edge of your vision. Asterisk, you try again, your patience wearing thin. You find the moon blower, hold it, and go back to the focusing tube. Slower this time. You ignore the shivering in your arms and the growing ache in your neck from bending at such an awkward angle. You find a point of reference, the edge of the lunar disk, and focus on that. You slide the tube out, whispers. The edge begins to harden. The soft, blurry line becomes crisper, more defined. The milky soup begins to curdle, to resolve itself into shapes and textures. And then, all at once, it happens. The image snaps into focus. Asterisk, the breath catches in your throat. For a heart-stopping second, your brain refuses to process what it's seeing. The light is almost blindingly bright, far more intense than you expected. You have to squint, letting your pupil adjust to the sudden, concentrated flood of moonlight. It's as if someone has opened a furnace door in the dead of night. The sheer proximity is dizzying. You are no longer looking at the moon. You are there, the familiar, friendly disk is gone, replaced by a vast, alien landscape that fills your entire field of view. It rushes toward you, detailed and immense and utterly, shockingly real. The wobbling and the blurring are still there, a constant dance at the edge of your vision, but the central image is solid. It's a world, and the first overwhelming, paradigm-shattering impression is not one of beauty or elegance. It's one of roughness, of imperfection. The perfect, polished, ethereal sphere of Aristotle is nowhere to be found. In its place is a scarred, battered, and gloriously bumpy reality. The initial shock gives way to a profound, heart-pounding sense of revelation, the perfect, smooth orb you were promised. The flawless crystal sphere that has populated astronomical texts for 2 millennia is a lie. What you are seeing through your eyepiece is a fraud, a cosmic impostor. This world is not smooth, it's lumpy. It's covered in bumps and pits, strange circular depressions, and what look like enormous, jagged wrinkles. Your eye is immediately drawn to the most dramatic feature, the terminator. That's the line that separates the sunlit day side of the moon from its dark night side. In the old model, this line should be a perfectly smooth, clean arc, like the edge of a shadow on a polished marble. But it's not. It's a ragged, chaotic mess. Asterisk, it's broken and serrated, like the edge of a poorly torn piece of paper. Bright points of light, like tiny, isolated diamonds, glitter in the darkness, just beyond the line of dawn. And conversely, deep, inky black shadows intrude into the sunlit territory, creating a jagged, uneven frontier of light and dark. For a moment, you struggle to understand what you're seeing. It's a completely alien visual grammar. Then, your brain, grounded in the familiar physics of the Earth, makes the connection. You've seen this before. You've seen it on your own world every single day. This is the effect of mountains. Asterisk, those brilliant, isolated specks of light in the darkness. Those are the peaks of colossal lunar mountains, so high that they are catching the first rays of the rising sun, while the valleys below them are still steeped in blackest night. And those deep, encroaching shadows in the lit half, those are the shadows being cast by other mountains, long, stark daggers of blackness stretching across the lunar surface. It's the same effect you would see looking down from a high peak in the Alps at sunrise, watching the light catch the tops of distant mountains while the world below remains asleep. The logic is inescapable, and its implication is immense. The moon has mountains, and if it has mountains, it is not a perfect sphere of ether. It is a solid, opaque, and rugged world, a world made of the same kind of stuff as the Earth. Asterisk, you feel a wave of something that is equal parts intellectual triumph and a kind of dizzying vertigo. It's one thing to have a private, theoretical doubt. It's another thing entirely to have it confirmed so vividly, to see the proof with your own eye, raw and undeniable. The boundary between the terrestrial and the celestial, the fundamental dividing line of the old cosmos, has just dissolved in a blaze of magnified moonlight. The moon is not a piece of heaven, it's just a place. A very, very distant place, but a place nonetheless. Asterisk, your eye is also drawn to the spots. The large, dark, grayish patches that are visible even to the naked eye, the features that make up the man in the moon. Through the telescope, they are transformed. They are not mere smudges or variations in color. They are vast, flat, low-lying plains. They look smoother than the surrounding, brighter regions, which are pockmarked and chaotic. You can see how the rugged, cratered highlands seem to end abruptly at the shores of these dark, expansive seas. You don't know what they are, of course. Are they actual bodies of water, reflecting less light than the land? Or are they just a different kind of rock? The naming convention you'll eventually settle on calling them Sumeria. The Latin for seas reflects this initial, hopeful uncertainty. Asterisk, and then there are the craters. Everywhere you look, but especially in the brighter, highland regions, the surface is peppered with them, perfectly circular depressions, each with a raised rim and, often, a small mountain peak right in the center. They are unlike anything you've seen on Earth on this scale. They are beautiful and strange. What could possibly have made them? One quirky and entirely wrong early theory that would be floated is that they were created by angels, who used the moon for a celestial game of cosmic bowling. A more scientific, though still incorrect, guess was that they were volcanic in origin. The truth that they are the scars of ancient impacts from asteroids and comets is a concept so violent and chaotic that it would not be fully accepted for another 300 years. For now, they are just one more piece of shocking, inexplicable topography. Asterisk, you pull back from the eyepiece, your mind reeling. You look up at the moon with your naked eye, then back into the telescope. The difference is staggering. The naked eye moon is a gentle, poetic mystery. The telescopic moon is a stark geological fact. You are the first human being to ever see this, to truly see it for what it is. One of the ongoing debates among historians is whether the English astronomer Thomas Harriot may have beaten you to it by a few months. Harriot had also acquired a Dutch spyglass and pointed it at the moon, even drawing a crude map. But his drawings were simple, almost cartoonish, and he didn't seem to grasp the revolutionary implications of what he was seeing. He saw bumps. You saw a whirl. The difference was not in the seeing, but in the understanding. You didn't just observe, you interpreted, and what you were interpreting, in the cold of your Padawan garden, was the beginning of the end for the ancient universe. Asterisk, your breathing is shallow, your heart thumping, a steady, excited rhythm against your ribs. You press your eye back to the cold metal ring of the eyepiece, a feeling of urgent purpose settling over you. The initial shock is fading, replaced by the focused, analytical mind of the scientist. You are no longer just a spectator. You are a cartographer, an explorer charting a new world. Your mission now is to observe, to measure, and to record. The most compelling evidence for these lunar mountains is happening right at that jagged edge of dawn, the terminator. You decide to concentrate your attention there, to study the interplay of light and shadow in a way no one has before. Asterisk, you steady the telescope, your hand surprisingly firm despite the cold and the excitement. You pan the instrument slowly, deliberately, along the length of that rugged line. The movement is jerky, the image trembling with every tiny adjustment, but you manage to follow the curve of the moon. As you watch, you notice a fascinating phenomenon. In the dark territory, just beyond the edge of sunlight, you can see the mountain peaks you noticed earlier. But now, as you watch them over time, they change. A peak that was an isolated spark of light a few minutes ago has now grown, the light spreading down its flanks as the sun rises from its perspective. It's like watching 100 tiny silent sunrises happening all at once. The terminator line isn't static. It's a creeping, crawling wave of daylight, and the mountains are the first to greet it. Asterisk, this observation allows you to do something remarkable. You realize you can use basic geometry, the same principles. You teach your students every date to estimate the height of these mountains. It's a beautifully simple and elegant piece of reasoning. You can see the sharp, triangular shadow cast by a mountain into a sunlit plain. You can estimate the length of that shadow based on its proportion to the visible features around it. You also know the angle of the sunlight hitting the moon at that point. With those two pieces of information, a little bit of trigonometry is all it takes to calculate the height of the object casting the shadow. It's the same method surveyors use to measure the height of a tower or a hill on Earth. By applying terrestrial mathematics to a celestial body, you are committing another small, revolutionary act. Asterisk, you begin to make mental notes, identifying specific, prominent peaks and their corresponding shadows. You note one particularly large, bright mountain near the center of the visible disk. Its shadow is a long, dark spear, stretching for what must be miles across a relatively flat plain. You do a quick, rough calculation in your head. The result is so astonishing you have to stop and rethink it. You run through the logic again. The numbers are undeniable. The mountain beneath your gaze, this bump on a supposedly perfect sphere, has to be at least 4 miles high. For miles, that is taller than any known mountain in Europe. Taller even than the highest peaks of the Alps. The moon is not just bumpy. It is dramatically, titanically mountainous. It is more rugged, more dramatic, more geographically interesting than large parts of the Earth. Asterisk. This fact is so contrary to the established doctrine that it makes you laugh. A short, sharp bark of incredulous laughter that clouds the eyepiece with your breath. You pull back and wipe it clean with your sleeve. A small, human interruption to the cosmic revelation. The idea that the heavens are not only imperfect, but are in fact more rugged and grand in scale than the Earth, is a delicious irony. It flips the entire cosmic hierarchy on its head. We are not the lumpen, corrupt center of a perfect universe. We are just one world among others. And perhaps not even the most impressive one. Asterisk, a lesser-known detail of your lunar observations is your artistic skill. You aren't just a scientist. You are a trained artist, well-versed in the techniques of Renaissance draftsmanship. You have a deep understanding of light and shadow, of how to represent a three-dimensional form on a two-dimensional surface. This skill, known as chiaroscuro, is precisely what allows you to correctly interpret what you're seeing. Another astronomer, without your artistic training, might have dismissed the shadows and bright spots as mere discolorations on the moon's surface. But you see them for what they are, the play of light over a solid, textured object. Your artistic eye is as important to this discovery as your mathematical mind. You don't just see shapes. You see form. You see a landscape. After spending what feels like an eternity tracing the magnificent, jagged spine of the lunar mountains, you allow your focus to drift. You pan the telescope away from the dramatic frontier of the Terminator and move deeper into the fully sunlit portion of the moon. Here, the landscape changes. The stark, high-contrast shadows disappear, bleached out by the direct, overhead sunlight. The terrain becomes flatter, softer, and the details are more subtle. It's like the difference between seeing a craggy mountain range at sunrise and seeing it under the flat, washed-out light of high noon. And it's here, in this brighter, flatter world, that you turn your attention to the other great mystery of the lunar surface. The Sumeria. These are the vast, dark plains that have captivated sky-gazers for all of human history. To the naked eye, they are just smudges, the Rorschach test of the heavens. But through your telescope, they resolve into distinct geographical features. You can see their boundaries clearly now. They are not just patches of a different color. They are topographically different. They are enormous, sprawling basins, far smoother and less cluttered than the bright, crater-pocked highlands that surround them. They look, for all the world, like ancient, dried-up ocean beds. You slowly sweep your view across the largest of these dark plains in the northern part of the moon, the one you will later name Mare Imbrium, the Sea of Rains. The sheer scale of it is breathtaking. It fills your entire eyepiece, a seemingly endless expanse of flat, gray desert. You can see the shoreline, where the bright, rugged lunar Alps rise up dramatically from the edge of the plain. The contrast is stark and beautiful. It's a coastline without water, a beach without waves. As you scan its surface, you notice that it isn't perfectly smooth. It's crossed by long, wrinkled-like ridges, and dotted with a few, scattered craters, like islands in a vast, empty sea. But compared to the chaotic highlands, it is a landscape of profound and ancient calm. The most obvious question, the one that hangs in the cold night air, is, are they actually seas? Are they filled with water? The thought is tantalizing. If the moon has water, could it also have weather, clouds, life? It's a dizzying, speculative leap, but in this moment, with the old rules shattered, anything seems possible. You look for clues. One of the most common arguments for the moon being a perfect ethereal body was its uniform brightness. If it were a rugged, earthy body, it was argued, its oceans would reflect sunlight differently from its land masses, creating a dazzling, specular reflection, like the bright glint of the sun on a calm sea. You look for that glint now. You scan the dark surfaces of the Sumeria, searching for a telltale sparkle, a flash of reflected sunlight that would betray the presence of a liquid surface. Asterisk, you find nothing. The Sumeria are dark, but they are a flat, matte, and uniform darkness. There is no watery shimmer, no brilliant flash of reflected sun. They absorb the light more than they reflect it. This is a crucial piece of negative evidence. They look like seas, they are shaped like seas, but they don't act like seas. A lesser-known quirk of this moment is that your initial conclusion was more cautious than you are often given credit for. In your first published accounts, you don't definitively say they are not water. You simply describe them as large spots, dark in color, and note that they are smoother than the surrounding areas. You leave the question open, a puzzle for future observation. It's a classic example of your scientific restraint. You report what you can see, what you can prove, and you are careful not to overstate your case. The definitive proof that the Sumeria are not seas, but vast plains of solidified volcanic basalt, will come much later. But the seed of the correct idea that they are a different type of terrain, not water, is planted right here, in your careful, methodical search for a reflection that isn't there. Asterisk, you continue your tour, moving from the Sea of Rains to the smaller, more intimate-looking Mare Serenitatis, Sea of Serenity, and Mare Tranquillitatis, Sea of Tranquility. You are, in effect, the first lunar tourist, taking a grand, sweeping tours of a new continent from an impossible distance. Each plain has its own character, its own unique shoreline, and scattering of features. Historians often wonder if you named these features on this very night, whispering the poetic Latin names to yourself in the dark, or if that came later, in the more sober light of day, as you organized your notes. The act of naming is an act of claiming, of making the unknown familiar, by giving these alien landscapes familiar, terrestrial names, seas, mountains. Alps, you are bringing the moon into the human sphere of understanding. You are turning it from a divine symbol into a piece of geography. It's a subtle but profound shift in perspective. The moon is no longer just a light in the sky. It is now a destination, a place you can map, a world you can know. Asterisk, as your eye grows more accustomed to the flood of moonlight and the strange new geography, you start to notice subtler, more delicate phenomena. You pan the telescope away from the dazzling, sunlit portion of the moon and guide it toward the dark side, the part of the disk that is still technically in shadow. According to all logic, this part should be completely black, an empty void of perfect nothingness, and it mostly is. But as you look closely, you realize it's not entirely dark. There is a faint, ghostly light there, a dim, ethereal glow that allows you to just barely make out the full circle of the lunar sphere. Asterisk. This is a phenomenon you've certainly noticed before with the naked eye. It's often called the old moon in the new moon's arms. On a clear night when the moon is a thin crescent, you can often see the rest of the disk glowing with a soft ashen light. But you, like everyone else, had probably never given it much serious thought. The common explanation was that the moon was slightly translucent. It was believed that the sphere of ether it was made of could soak up sunlight and then gently radiate it back out, causing the dark part to glow from within, like a cooling ember. Another theory suggested it was the light from the planet Venus, or perhaps the combined light of all the distant stars that was illuminating the lunar night. Both explanations were poetic, and both fit neatly within the old cosmology. Asterisk, but now, looking through your telescope, those explanations feel flimsy and insufficient. The glow is too distinct, too clearly illuminating a solid, opaque surface. And you now know, with the certainty of direct observation, that the moon is not a translucent, ethereal crystal. It's a rocky, mountainous world. So, where is this faint, ghostly light coming from? You watch the dim landscape float in the eyepiece. You can just make out the faint outlines of the Great Moria and the brighter highlands, all painted in the same soft, silvery gray brushstroke. The light is uniform, wrapping around the curve of the sphere. It has to be coming from somewhere, asterisk. And then, in a moment of stunning intellectual clarity, a truly Copernican shift in perspective, you find the answer. The light is coming from you. Not you, personally, shivering in your garden, but from your world. It is Earthshine. It's the light of the sun, reflecting off the vast surface of the Earth, traveling across 240,000 miles of empty space, and gently illuminating the landscape of the lunar night. You are seeing the light of your own world shining on another dot. Asterisk, the idea is so radical, so profound, it takes a moment to fully sink in. To even conceive of it, you have to perform an extraordinary mental leap. You have to imagine yourself standing on the surface of the moon, looking up at the sky. What would you see? From that vantage point, the Earth would be a colossal, brilliant globe hanging in the blackness. It would be larger, brighter, and far more magnificent than the moon ever appears from Earth. And just as the full moon illuminates the terrestrial night, a full Earth would bathe the lunar landscape in a bright, steady glow. The faint light you are seeing is the second-hand radiance of your own planet. Asterisk, this is a far more revolutionary concept than even the discovery of mountains on the moon. The existence of lunar mountains merely proves the moon is Earth-like. But the existence of Earthshine proves something far deeper. It proves that the Earth itself is a celestial body. It's a planet, just like Venus or Mars, capable of reflecting sunlight and illuminating its neighbors. This single observation shatters the fundamental distinction between the Earth and the heavens. The Earth is not the dull, dark center of the universe, qualitatively different from the shining wanderers in the sky. It is one of them. It is in the sky, too. It is a source of light. Asterisk. This was a theory that had been proposed before. Leonardo da Vinci had sketched the idea in his notebooks a century earlier, and Kepler had also written about it, but they were speculating. You are the first to truly see it, to understand the visual evidence in the context of a new cosmology. Historians still debate how much of this conclusion you formulated on this exact night. Did the full implication of Earthshine hit you all at once, or was it a dawning realization over several nights of observation? While it's romantic to imagine a single eureka moment, it's more likely that the idea grew and solidified as you spent more time with your new, telescopic view of the cosmos. But the seed is planted here, in this observation of a faint, ghostly glow. Asterisk. A new sense of urgency grips you, a frantic need to document what you've seen. The profound, philosophical implications can wait. For now, you are a witness to a new world, and you have a duty to record your testimony. The image in your eyepiece is fleeting, constantly trembling, and at the mercy of the Earth's rotation, which is steadily pulling the moon across your narrow field of view. Memory is fallible. You need to get this down on paper. You need to draw what you've seen, to capture the shocking, bumpy truth of the lunar landscape before the image fades, or the clouds roll in. Asterisk, you stumble back into your study, your legs stiff from the cold and the awkward posture you've been holding. The sudden warmth of the room feels thick and comforting, a welcome relief from the biting night air. The fire has burned low, just a soft, pulsating bed of red embers. You don't bother to stoke it. You move with a feverish energy, your mind ablaze with the images you've just witnessed. You go to your desk, your hands fumbling in the dim candlelight for a fresh sheet of paper, your quill, and your pot of ink. This is a critical moment. One of the great unanswered questions for historians is what your very first drawing of the telescopic moon actually looked like. Did you make a quick, rough sketch in the dark, a messy scribble meant only for your own reference? Or did you immediately begin a more careful, deliberate drawing? Your published engravings are beautifully detailed wash drawings, but they were certainly produced later, with more time and care. What we would give to see the raw, immediate impression. The first lines you scratched onto a page. Asterisk for tonight. Let's imagine a compromise. You are driven by a mix of scientific precision and artistic impulse. You bring a small lap desk and your drawing materials back out into the cold garden. You set up a candle nearby, its single, flickering flame a tiny island of warm light in the overwhelming cold darkness. You have to shield it with your hand, creating a little cave of light to protect it from the night breeze. Now begins the most difficult and frustrating part of the night, the mad, shivering dash between two different worlds. Asterisk you lean into the eyepiece, absorbing as much detail as you can, trying to burn a specific feature into your short-term memory. You stare at a particular cluster of craters, a prominent mountain range, the curve of a specific sea. Then you pull back, blinking in the sudden darkness, and quickly turn to your paper. Your eyes struggle to readjust to the dim, flickering candlelight. You dip your quill in the ink pot. The ink is thick and sludgy from the cold end. Try to translate the memory onto the page. Your fingers are numb, clumsy with cold, and the quill feels awkward and foreign in your grip. You scratch out a few lines, trying to capture the curve of a crater rim, the jagged line of a shadow. Asterisk then, you go back to the telescope. You peer into the eyepiece again, and the moon has moved. You have to nudge the heavy tube, reacquiring your target, trying to find the exact feature you were just drawing. You find it, study it again, trying to correct the errors in your mental image. Then it's back to the paper, another frantic burst of scratching ink. This back and forth process is maddeningly inefficient. You spend more time readjusting your eyes and fumbling with your tools than you do actually observing or drawing. It's a comical, desperate ballet of seeing and recording. You are a man caught between two incompatible technologies, a cutting-edge optical instrument and a medieval writing tool. Asterisk, despite the difficulties, an image begins to emerge on the page. It's rough, certainly not a masterpiece for public display, but it's a record. You focus on the essentials, the rough texture of the highlands, the smoothness of the Sumeria, and most importantly, the jagged, shadow-filled chaos of the Terminator. You use the techniques of chiaroscuro, you know so well, using hatched lines to indicate shadows, leaving the bright peaks as stark white paper. Your drawing, even in its roughness, has a three-dimensional quality, a sense of depth and solidity that previous, symbolic representations of the moon completely lacked. You are not drawing a symbol, you are drawing a place. Asterisk, a small, quirky detail of your later, more polished moon drawings is that you were a master of a technique called ink wash. Instead of just using lines, you would dilute the ink with water to create different shades of gray, allowing you to paint the subtle gradations of light and shadow on the lunar surface. This gave your drawings a stunning, almost photographic realism that made them incredibly persuasive. It's a testament to the fact that you saw this not just as a scientific diagram, but as a portrait. You were painting the portrait of a new world. Asterisk, the hours begin to blur. The cold seeps deeper into your bones, but you barely notice. You are completely absorbed in your work, lost in the cycle of looking, remembering, and drawing. The moon continues its silent, relentless journey across the sky, and you follow it, nudging your telescope, sketching furiously. The world has shrunk to this tiny circle of focused light, the small patch of illuminated paper, and the frantic shivering bridge between them. You are a scribe, taking dictation from the cosmos, and the story it is telling you is more strange and more wonderful than anything you could have ever imagined. The old world is fading, and you are, line by shaky line, drawing its replacement into existence. Asterisk, the night wears on, and a deep, profound quiet settles in your mind. The initial, frantic excitement of discovery and the harried rush to sketch has subsided, replaced by a calmer, more contemplative state. You are no longer just seeing, you are beginning to understand. You lean against the cold stone of the garden wall, the telescope standing silent beside you, a partner in your nocturnal vigil. The candle has burned down to a sputtering nub, its light barely reaching the scattered, ink-stained papers at your feet. Your neck aches, your fingers are frozen, but your mind is clear and sharp, buzzing with the weight of your new knowledge. Asterisk, you look up at the moon, no longer with the eye of a passive observer, but with the gaze of someone who has been let in on a secret. The moon looks different to you now, forever changed. The vague, milky smudges are no longer just smudges. They are the sea of rains, the sea of serenity. The gentle, poetic light is no longer the glow of a perfect ether. It is the reflected glare of sunlight on a 4-mile-high mountain of rock. You have stripped the moon of its mythology. You have traded poetry for geology, perfection for truth. And the trade, you feel in your bones, is a magnificent one. The real moon, the bumpy, imperfect, Earth-like moon, is infinitely more interesting than the boring, featureless sphere of the philosophers. Asterisk, but, as you stand there, in the deep silence of the pre-dawn hours, the full implications of what you've seen begin to land, one by one, like heavy stones dropped into a still pond. The perfection of the heavens is a fiction. The fundamental division between the celestial and terrestrial realms is a mistake. The moon is a world. The earth is a planet. Each of these thoughts, on its own, is a quiet heresy. Together, they form a systematic dismantling of the entire Ptolemaic and Aristotelian universe. The old, cozy, human-centric cosmos, with its nested crystal spheres and its singing harmony, has been dealt a mortal wound tonight. It hasn't collapsed yet, but you have just heard the first loud, unmistakable crack in its foundation. Asterisk, you feel a sense of profound loneliness. You are, for now, a population of one in this new universe. Everyone else on the planet is asleep, tucked in their beds, secure in the knowledge that they live at the center of a perfect and unchanging creation. You alone are awake, standing in the cold, burdened and thrilled by the knowledge that the world is a far larger, stranger, and more complicated place than anyone believes. How will you tell them? How do you convince people to abandon a truth that has comforted and guided them for 2,000 years? You know it will not be easy. You know the arguments you will face. Your observations will be dismissed as tricks of the lens, optical illusions, deceptions of the glass. You will be told that you are seeing flaws in your instrument, not in the heavens. Asterisk, a lesser-known aspect of the coming battle is that it would not just be with the church. Your most immediate and hostile critics would be your fellow academics, the university philosophers and scholars. Their entire careers, their prestige, their very identities were built upon the foundation of Aristotle's teachings. They had more to lose from this new cosmology than the theologians did. You are not just challenging a scientific model, you are challenging their authority, their life's work. You are, in effect, telling the most respected minds of your generation that the books they have dedicated their lives to studying are wrong. They will not thank you for it. Historians often debate whether you foresaw the full extent of the conflict that would follow, culminating in your famous trial. Did you, in this quiet moment, anticipate the interrogations, the accusations, the house arrest? Probably not in its full detail, but you were a shrewd man who understood power and politics. You must have known that you were stepping onto a very dangerous stage. Asterisk, you pick up one of your sketches. In the faint moonlight, the ink lines are stark and clear. It's a drawing of a world, undeniable and real. This is your shield and your sword. You will not fight with rhetoric or philosophy alone. You will fight with evidence. You will show them. You will make them look through the telescope themselves. The black of the night sky begins to soften, shifting imperceptibly to a deep, bruised indigo. A new, colder light is creeping in from the east, behind the dark silhouettes of the distant rooftops. It's the first, quiet announcement of the approaching dawn. Your long night with the moon is coming to an end. Your celestial companion, which has been your entire world for the last several hours, is beginning to fade, its brilliant silver light looking pale and washed out in the growing twilight. The stars around it are extinguishing themselves one by one, drowned in the encroaching blue. Asterisk, you are exhausted. A deep, bone-weary fatigue has settled into your body. Your back is a single, solid ache. Your eyes burn from squinting into the eyepiece and staring at the page in the flickering, inadequate light. Your hands are so cold, they feel like wooden claws. But beneath the physical exhaustion, your mind is still alight, still processing, still turning over the immense consequence of what you have witnessed. You have not slept, but you have been awakened in a way that is far more profound. You feel as though you've aged a decade in a single night, but also as though you have been reborn. Asterisk, you take one last look through the telescope. The image is dimmer now, the contrast fading with the morning light. The long, dramatic shadows you saw cast by the mountains at the terminator have shortened, and the mysterious, isolated peaks that once glittered in the darkness have now been fully engulfed by the lunar day. The landscape is still there, still rugged and cratered, but its most dramatic and persuasive features are receding. You realize how fortunate you were to have observed it at just the right phase, to have caught the mountains in such stark, undeniable relief. It was a perfect night. The scene was clear, the moon was high, and the world was quiet. Asterisk, you gently lift the telescope from its stand. The long tube feels heavy and solid in your arms, a tangible piece of the night's impossible journey. You carry it back inside, moving from the sharp, cold air of the dawning day into the stale, smoky warmth of your study. The room looks strange in the gray morning light filtering through the window. The candles have all guttered out, leaving behind sad little puddles of hardened wax. The papers on your desk are a chaotic mess of ink smudges and frantic calculations. The room is a testament to a battle that has been fought and won in the quiet solitude of the night. Asterisk, you place the telescope in its corner, leaning it against the wall like a sleeping soldier. You look at the instrument with a new sense of awe and affection. It is no longer just a collection of wood, glass, and leather. It is a key. It is the tool that unlocked a secret door in the universe and allowed you, for a few precious hours, to peek through. One of the ironies that historians love to point out is the sheer simplicity of your device. By modern standards, your telescope was pitifully weak. A cheap department store telescope today has far superior optics, but it was just powerful enough. It was the right tool, at the right time, in the right hands. It didn't need to be perfect. It just needed to be better than the naked eye. And it was. Asterisk, you walk over to your desk and pick up the sketches you made in the cold. In the clear, neutral light of morning, they look both crude and miraculous. The lines are shaky, the ink is blotted, but the truth they contain is explosive. These pieces of paper are more dangerous than any political pamphlet, more revolutionary than any call to arms. They are a quiet, factual declaration that the universe is not what we thought it was. You gather them up, stacking them into a neat pile. This is the beginning of your next great work, the book you will call Sidereus Nuncusta, Starry Messenger. You will not just be a professor of mathematics anymore. You will be a messenger, carrying news from a world that no one knew existed. Asterisk, the first rays of the actual sun now slice through the window, painting a long golden rectangle of light across the stone floor. The city outside is beginning to stir. You can hear the distant, melodic call of a baker announcing his fresh bread. The clatter of wooden shutters being thrown open. The world is waking up, the same world that it was yesterday. But you are not the same. You have seen a new heaven, and in doing so, You have created a new Earth. You sit down heavily in your hard wooden chair, the wood groaning under your weight. You don't feel the need for sleep. You just sit there, in the quiet of your study, watching the dust motes dance in the sunbeam. Your mind a universe of new and brilliant stars. The night is over. The revolution has just begun. And now, as our night with Galileo comes to a close, just allow the story to fade into the background. Let the details of the mountains, the shadows, and the soft, ghostly earthshine all gently dissolve. There is nothing more to analyze, nothing more to learn. The journey is complete, and all that is left is the quiet and the dark. Feel the weight of your body, heavy and comfortable, sinking softly into the surface beneath you. Notice the gentle rhythm of your own breathing, a slow, quiet tide that rises and falls without any effort at all. It's the oldest and most comforting sound in your world, the soft, steady whisper of your own life. Each breath in is calm and cool, and each breath out is a chance to let go of the day, to release any lingering thoughts or worries, letting them drift away like smoke into the night air. The cold of Galileo's garden is far away now, replaced by the soft, secure warmth that surrounds you. You are safe, you are comfortable, and you are exactly where you need to be. The great, silent machinery of the cosmos turns on without your help. The planets continue their slow and graceful dance, and the moon, that bumpy, imperfect, and beautiful world, continues its patient journey across the sky. All is well. All you need to do now is rest. Just rest.